شوتي في نايل. What's the day Sha'ban?
I mean today's the 12th night.
Sha'ban?
Yeah.
Alright, طيب. يا جماعة. It's always something. Always something. Don't worry about it. We just gotta start. Bismillah. استعين بالله ولا نعجز. Better fit for the time. Bismillah. Bismillah. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سيد ولد آدم أجمعين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين على مر الأيام والليالي والشهور والسنين أما بعد. As we continue in the explanation of lines of poetry by the great Imam Al-Haafiz Al Hakamee rahimahullah, and his lines of poetry of what he entitled as Assubool Assaweeyah, the Fiqh Sunan Al-Marwiyah, the Fiqh Sunan Al-Marwiyah, for the great Imam Al-Haafiz Al Hakamee rahimahullah, who died at the age of 35. He died very young, rahimahullah. As we know, the abiyat, to the lines of poetry, were explained by the great Imam from his students, where he is also an Imam in his own right, Shaykh Zayd ibn Hadee and Madkhalee, rahimahullah, rahmatu wasi'ah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon those two great Imams from Ahl Sunnah. As we continue in the lines of poetry, you'll find that Al-Haafiz Al Hakamee that he mentioned is said, in regards to where we stopped at last class, if we can reiterate just a little bit of it. We were talking about the sighting of the moon and the different aqwal and the different statements in regards to that matter. The sighting of, I forgot to say the date. Because today is 8:14 p.m., Thursday, March the 25th, 2021, which agrees on the Gregorian, the Hijri calendar, which is now what, everyone? The 12th of Sha'ban. 12th of the great month of Sha'ban. Well, on the Hijri, well, technically this is the night of Jumu'ah, according to the Hijri calendar. Tonight is Laylatul Jumu'ah. Well, the year is 1442 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. We were speaking about the affair concerning what, everyone? The sighting. It says, وَالْخُلْفُ فِي شَهَادَةِ الْهِلَالِ عَلَى ثَلَاثَةٍ مِنَ الْأَقْوَالِ فَقِيلَ بُدَّ مِنَ الْعَدْلَيْنِ فِي الصَّوْمِ وَالْفِطْرِ كِلَا الْحَالَيْنِ وَقِيلَ فِي دُخُولِهِ عَدْلٌ وَفِي خُرُوجِهِ عَدْلَانِ شَرْطَانِ تَفِي وقيل يكفي العدل في الفطر كما في رؤية الصوم لما قد علم من كونه قد صح في الدين العمل بخبر الواحد من غير جدل. We will continue in the explanation just to review a little what we covered yesterday. It said what, everyone? وَالْخُلْفُ فِي شَهَادَةِ الْهِلَالِ. There was a difference concerning the testimony for the sighting of the moon upon three statements. We'll mention them quickly. He said, notice he says in the poetry, قِيلَ لَا بُدَّ مِنَ الْعَدْلَيْنِ. Upon sighting the moon, or one who sights it, or they investigate to seek it out, on the 29th night is when that begins, searching out for the sighting. As we know, the Prophet ﷺ said in the last class we mentioned last night, أَنَا الشَّهْرُ تِسْعٌ وَعِشْرُونَ يَوْمًا فَصُومُوا لِرُؤْيَتِهِ وَأَفْطِرُوا لِرُؤْيَتِهِ فَنُغُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ فَأَكْمِلُوا عِدَّةَ الشَّعْبَانِ ثَلَاثِينَ. Right, everyone? We covered that yesterday. We said in the message of Allah والسلام, said that the month is 29 days. What does he mean by that? Is that true? But what was intended when he said 29? That's the least amount of days that was considered as a month. When the 29th arrives, then what? Seek out the sighting. But it could be what?
20.
It could be 30. It could be 30. However, one after the 29th night will start to investigate to seek out the sighting. Right, everyone? So that's what he was speaking about, alayhi salatu wasalam. The night, the 29th night, according to the Hijri calendar, of course. The Hijri calendar, not the Gregorian calendar. When we utilize the what? The Hijri calendar of the 29th night, they will seek out or investigate the sighting. He said, if it now, one doesn't see it, فَإِنْهُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ, if the affair becomes unclear, whether, meaning something hinders you from seeing it, whether it be from the different types of circumstances or whatever you want, for example, if it's raining or if it be cloudy or what have you, or the likes of those different conditions, then complete the 30 days, as we mentioned, right, everyone? But, however, that's not the point. The point is, the Haafiz Al Hakamee said, the sighting of the moon, the one who seek out, of course we know, alhamdulillah, those affairs, we have those who investigate those matters, who are professionals and know how to do that. We're talking about the origin of the sunnah, of course, how the affairs have been given in clear detail, where it mentioned and said that if one was in a remote place or far distance place, these are the affairs that would take place, of course. Now, if one individual, if you look into poetry, he says, فَقِيلَ لَا بُدَّ مِنَ الْعَدْلَيْنِ, that one statement of Ahl-Ilm said that there has to be two upright Muslims, two upright Muslim men, for the month to commence, meaning for the month to start, and for what? And for it to be concluded. There had to be two men to see it, and there had to be two men to what? To see it for the end, or for the concluding of the month. Two upright Muslim men. So that's one code, that's one statement of Ahl-Ilm. Two upright Muslim men for the commencement of the month, meaning for it to start, that they will have to seek it out. Two Muslim men, as we mentioned last class. And two upright Muslim men for what? For when it's concluded, as we said last class. Right, everyone? So that's the brief what we mentioned. That's number one. Number two, we said that that's the strongest opinion, al-qawl al-rajih. The strongest opinion is what we're about to mention now. He says of utilizing one individual, one upright Muslim man who has that strength, of course, in what they see, meaning their visual or their observation is clear and strong. Meaning they don't have no type of what? Ailment. Where they have some type of discrepancy in their sight or vision. So we said in this regard what we mentioned. The second opinion is, as the great Imam Al-Hafiz that goes on to say, وَقِيلَ فِي دُخُولِهِ عَدْلُ وَفِي. For verily it was said in the second opinion, or the second position, that it suffices as what? Adlun. One upright Muslim man. For it to start. However, when it leaves off or it departs and the month is concluded, it should be what? Should be two. خُرُوجِهِ عَدْلَانِ شَطَّانِ تَفِي. And when the month is over, or when it's concluded, then it should be what? Two upright Muslim men at the conclusion of the month of Ramadan. And we find that the majority of Ahl-Ilm mentioned that that's the strongest position. You'll find the likes of the great Imam, Shaykh Salih ibn Fawzan, ibn Abdullah al-Fawzan, Hafidhullah, mentions the same thing. And the likes of the great Imam, Abdul Aziz ibn Baz, and other than them. From those who gave the same exact fatwa in regards to the month, that it suffices for one upright, trustworthy, reliable individual who has strength in what he sees, and he knows what to look out for, and he knows the characteristics of the sighting, and the likes of what will be prerequisites for one to go see it, and be qualified to see it. So it suffices with Ahl Sunnah as what? How many? One, and when it departs, J. That's the second position. The third, as we mentioned, it says, وَقِيلَ يَكْفِ الْعَدْلُ فِي الْفِطْرِ كَمَا فِي رُؤْيَةِ الصَّوْمِ لِمَا قَدْ عُلِمَا. Then it suffices as one, as far as in what? In regards to breaking the fast. And one also suffices with what? For when it starts. Now, so that's basically saying the opposite of the first position. First position says stipulation for two, for when it starts, and two when it ends. There's the last position, the third one, It's just saying that one suffices for what? For when it starts, and one suffices for when what? When it ends. That's it. But a person would say we have narrations that are authentic, in which, as we said last night, so there are authentic narrations to aid all of these positions, right? However, when the Messenger of Allah did mention 2 upright Muslim men, in regards to 2, he also mentioned on the occasion, you'll find what happened in the hadith, as we explained last class, of Abdullah bin Umar, when the Bedouin came and informed the Messenger of Allah. And he was alone. And he said to the Messenger of Allah, I sighted the moon. He said, do you testify none has the right to be worshipped except Allah and Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah, to the end of the narration. So how do we combine between all of them? This is what we summed up last class. This is what we said. We said in regards to the delete, or what we have in the qawa'id from usul fiqhiyah, there's a principle when you call, what they call it, you have dalalatul mantuq and you have dalalatul mafhum. You have a qa'idah which is called dalalatul mantuq and you have what they call dalalatul mafhum. It's a principle in fiqh. You'll find that if 2 narrations of the Messenger of Allah, one, it would indicate a particular understanding in one narration. Then you have on the other side of another narration, dalalatul mantuq, what it indicates of what the Messenger of Allah said. For if that's the case, where both the affairs have been equal, and you see them, then what takes precedence is what they call dalalatul mantuq. It's what they call the indication of what? Of what, everyone? Of what was said. Of what was said. Not negating that if 2 Muslim sighted the moon, of course, fabiha wa ni'mat. If 2 upright Muslim men sighted it, whether it be for the beginning or the end, there's no problem. Rather, the more, the better. But the question is it obligatory? We say what? We say no. For the one the month commences, when it starts, what suffices is what? 1. Due to the fact that we have narration from the Messenger of Allah relied on what? The news of one individual. So it doesn't negate that what? That 2 is also good. But however, we do have something that's mantuq, something in which the Messenger of Allah said, where he clearly accepted the narration of what? Of one individual. So that's what we mentioned in this regard, that what? That it's not a prerequisite that in regards to the month starting, that there has to be what? 2 upright Muslim men that have to sight the moon. Rather, like we said in that hadith of Abdullah bin Umar, and when the Bedouin came to the Messenger of Allah, and he sufficed by what was conveyed to him by that one Bedouin that said to him, and to the Messenger of Allah, like we said, asked him those questions of what would necessitate him accepting his narration, where he's asked him about his testimony of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, until it said in the narration, he said, Adhib fin nas ya Bilal, Adhib fin nas an yasumu ghada. He said, oh Bilal, announce to the people to start their fast tomorrow. Fine. So that's what we said in regards to what sum up everything. Fine. So let's continue. If you go back to the lines of poetry, he says, وكونه من كونه قد صح في الدين العمل بخبر الواحد من غير جدل. So you find that the great Imam Haafiz Al Hakamee is as if he's mentioning that one will suffice. Of course, notice he said in the poetry, if you read it, he said, for it being verily has been authentically reported in the religion of working by the narration of one individual without any disputation, without any argument. If you learn the line of poetry, it says, مِنْ كَوْنِهِ قَدْ صَحَّ فِي الدِّينِ الْعَمَلِ. Verily has been authenticated and firmly established in our religion of working by the narration or the news that's been conveyed by what? One upright individual, trustworthy and reliable in their narrations, with all the prerequisites fulfilled, for, of course, of them being reliable. Is it clear, everyone? So it said, without any disputation between those statements. So that's where you'll find the great Al-Haafiz Al Hakamee that he mentioned, to let you know that what, everyone, that this affair has been firmly established in regards, if one cited it, the moon, and with all those prerequisites fulfilled, then his news or the narration that he has brought to us is acceptable with all the reliability, and the prerequisites for it has been fulfilled. Is it clear, everyone? But we said with the condition is that at the end of the month there should be what? 2. There's another qa'idah fiqhiyah that we'll talk about a little bit later, inshallah, in regards to that affair. Because there's a qa'idah fiqhiyah in this regard, which I don't have time to discuss right now. But as we go on in the poetry, it clearly says, because we got to move. Now notice it goes on to say, look in the poetry. It says, وَإِنْ رُؤِيَا فِي بَلَدٍ هَلْ يَلْزَمُ بَقِيَّةَ الْبُلْدَانِ خُلْفُ لَهُمُ بَعْتَ اتِّفَاقِهِمْ عَلَى لُزُومِ وِفَاقِ أَهْلِهِ عَلَى الْعُمُومِ. Jayd. The great Imam Al-Haafiz Al Hakamee, rahimahullah, goes on to say, وَإِنْ رُؤِيَا فِي بَلَدٍ هَلْ يَلْزَمُ بَقِيَّةَ الْبُلْدَانِ خُلْفٌ لَهُمُ. He says, if decided, if it's been established in one land or in a country, does it necessitate that the rest of the lands have to work by their what? Their citing? Difference between them. Difference between them. خُلْفٌ لَهُمُ. Difference between them. He says, after اتفاقهم على لزوم, after they agree upon what is binding of the agreements of a particular people in a particular land, a particular zone. I'm going to explain this. The particular zone of it being general for them in that specific zone, meaning for that particular sighting, that it necessitates that all of those people in that specific zone have to what? Work by it. We'll talk about that in a minute. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about that. We're going to explain that right now. Fine. So now we're going to speak about this affair. The question, as we said, the origin, it goes back to if the sighting of the moon is seen in a particular land, is it now necessitate that all of the al-alam, the whole world, have to work by it? The origin we're going to lay down, and then we're going to give some details in regards to the lands of kufr, because their circumstances are a little different than the lands that are the lands of the Muslims. Right, so let's go by the origin. Of course, you'll find that the great Imam Al-Haafiz Al Hakamee said that it's khulf, ikhtilaf. That's the meaning of khulf here in the particular poetry. Al-khulf means ikhtilaf. Khulfun lahum means ikhtilaf. There's some difference amongst them in this regard. He says you'll find that from the great scholars of fiqh, such as Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad, wa Salim ibn Abdullah, wa Ishaq ibn Ibrahim, Al-Ma'ruf ibn Rahawayh, Ibn Makhlad ibn Rahawayh, the great Imam. He said that every city has its own what? Sighting. That's the origin. وحكاه الترمذي عن أهل العلم ولم يحكي سواه. He says you'll find that Tirmidhi brought this statement upon, or relating it upon, these people of knowledge, who is Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad, wa Salim ibn Abdullah, wa Ishaq ibn Ibrahim ibn Makhlad al-Ma'ruf ibn Rahawayh al-Hamzah, the great Imam. That every land has its own what? Has its own sighting. That's the first opinion, or that's the first position. وَاسْتَدَلَّ هَؤُلَاء بِمَا رَوَاهُ أَحْمَدُ وَمُسْلِمُ التِّرْمِذِي. Also, there's been narrations that's been brought in this regard, where they substantiate this position by a statement which has been related in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad and Muslim al-Tirmidhi. Listen, upon Kurayb, that al-Fadl sent Kurayb to Muawiyah, the great Sahabi, where we know Muawiyah had assumed the position of the Khilafah in Sham. Where's Sham, everyone? The area of Palestine, Jordan, Syria, all is considered Sham. Those areas are considered Sham. So he sent him to Sham. Says, فقال فقدمت الشام فقضيت حاجتها واستهل علي رمضان وأنا بالشام فرأيت الهلال ليلة الجمعة ثم قدمت المدينة في آخر الشهر فسألني عبد الله بن عباس ثم ذكر الهلال فقال متى رأيتم الهلال فقلت رأيناه ليلة الجمعة فقال أنت رأيته فقلت نعم ورآه الناس وصام معاوية فقال لكننا رأيناه ليلة السبت فلا نزال نصوم حتى نكمل 30 أو نرى فقلت ألا تكتفي برؤية معاوية وصيامه فقال لا هكذا أمرنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Fine. So it said here in this particular position, this narration that we're saying here, it said that al-Fadl sent Kurayb to Sham. He said, and when I went to Sham, he says I took care of her necessity until Ramadan started. While I was there in Sham, and I sighted, or I seen the sighting for the moon on the night of Jumu'ah. Then I came to Al-Madinah in the last month of Ramadan, and Abdullah ibn Abbas, the great Sahabi, asked me about or concerning the sighting, meaning when he was in Sham. He said, Did you see the sighting there? He said, yes, we seen it on the night of Jumu'ah. He said, are you sure you seen it? You seen it on that particular night? He said, yes. And the people seen it, and they started to fast, and also Muawiyah started his fast. He said, however, we seen it on the night of Saturday. Saturday night. He says, and we will continue to fast until we complete 30 or we sight the moon. Then he asked, and he said to him, meaning Kurayb, he said to Ibn Abbas, he said, will you not suffice or find adequate the sighting of Muawiyah and the fact that he started his fast on that particular night? He said, no. Like this, the Messenger of Allah commanded us. So that's just the first position. The second one, وذهب جمهور الفقهاء إلى أنه إذا رؤي هلال رمضان في بلد لزم أهل البلد كلها أن يصوموا، لأن الخطاب في قوله صوموا لرؤيته على العموم، يعني يعم جميع المسلمين، ولأن رمضان ثبت دخوله فتثبت أحكامه فوجب الصيام على عموم المسلمين برؤية عدل منهم في أي مكان كان. تلندم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Maybe 43, it doesn't get any easy. الله يقوينا وإياكم. What are you doing? Wait, you just knock. Big baby, yeah.
طيب بسم الله. طيب. Just to make it easy, the second statement of you'll find that the majority of the scholars of fiqh, who are called al-fuqaha, says أنه إذا رؤي هلال رمضان في بلد لزم أهل البلاد كلها. He said that they go to the second position. That's what we are mentioning now. That if the sighting of the moon has been affirmed, the sighting of Ramadan in one land, it necessitates that it's binding upon the rest of them, that they fast. What's their dalil? Their dalil is the addressment of the message of Allah and that narration that we know where the messenger said, Sumu li ru'yatih, fast upon seeing it. So they take the generality, the general understanding of that narration that is general for all of the Muslims. Meaning, once it's been affirmed, then all of them have to work by it. He said once the month has been established, when it started, then its ahkam, its rulings also start. So that's the second. The third, which is the position of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, that they give details. So listen. Just put your pens down and understand. It says, وَاسْفَصَّلَ بَعْضُ الْفُقَهَاء كَالشَّافِعِي فِي الْمَشْهُورِ عَنْهُ كَالشَّافِعِي في المشهور عنه فقال إن اختلفت المطالع فلكل قوم مطلعهم وإن اتفقت المطالع حكم الجميع أو فحكم الجميع واحد في الصوم والإفطار هو اختيار شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية وكما ترى اختيار وجيه لاختلاف زمن المطالع والمغارب لا سيما بالنسبة لأهل الشرق الأقصى والمغرب كذلك. He says the fuqaha that they give details in this regard, such as the great Imam Muhammad bin Idris al-Shafi'i, and what is known and established upon him, that he said, if the matali' are different, if the zones are different, the different lands are far apart, meaning that their zones are what? Are different, meaning that they're far apart, very far, remote, distant from each other. So that means their zones are all what? The zones are different. Just as you'll find that they say that in different zones, it's a different time. It's different times. Right or wrong? So they said, when اختلفت المطالع, if the matali', if the different zones are different or they're remote. Somebody's phone. That the different zones are remote, or they're different. Then everyone or every particular nation or people will have their own what? Sighting. If the zones are different, the matali', matla' is where the sun rises, meaning the zone that they're in, basically. For lack of a better word. So unless one could come with a better translation, they ate me. That's what comes to my mind right now. To get the taqreeb al-ma'na. حتى أقرب لكم المعنى. وإن كنتم يعني عندكم كلمة أحسن مما أتيت بها فأخبرني. طيب. المهم, we say in this regard that the zones, if they're different, the lands are remote, then every land has its own what? Sign. But if the zone now agrees, إن اتفقت المطالع, the matali' are all now the same, close by one another, then Shaykh al-Islam says, then the hukum, or the ruling in regards to them, are the same in regards to when they start and conclude the month. For that sighting, of them working by that specific sighting for that specific what? Zone. And that is the choice of what Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah gave. You'll find that the great Imam, Shaykh Zayd ibn Hadee Madkhalee, is as if he agrees, where he says, كَمَا تَرَى اِخْتِيَارٌ وَجِيهٌ. He said that is a what? preferred choice, so that's a good choice. And what was mentioned by the great Imam Shaykh al-Islam, he said, لِاخْتِلَافِ زَمَنِ الْمَطَالِعِ وَالْمَغَارِبِ, due to the fact that the zones and the different, of course, the west, the different time zones and how they are, especially in regards to those who are in the remote distance of the east, the sharq in the east and in the west, how they're slightly different in those regards. However, this is the origin in regards to the Muslim countries and the Muslim lands. There was a good question. I just had my hand on it, then I moved it. Now, then you'll find that even Shaykh Uthaymeen, that he mentioned a tremendous benefit in regards to us in the lands of the disbelievers, or the disbelieving lands. He said, وَأَمَّا الشِّقِّ الثَّانِي مِنَ السُّؤَالِ وهو كيف يصوم المسلمون في بعض بلاد الكفار التي ليس بها رؤية شرعية. He said, what about the Muslims in some of the lands of the non-Muslims? He said that they do not have a legislated sighting. He said, فإن هؤلاء يمكنهم أن يثبتوا الهلال عن طريق الشرع عفوا فإن هؤلاء يمكنهم أن يثبتوا الهلال عن طريق شرعي وذلك بأن يتراءوا الهلال إذا أمكنهم ذلك. فإن لم يمكنهم هذا فإن قلنا بالقول الأول في هذه المسألة فإنهم متى ثبتت رؤية الهلال في بلد الإسلام فإنهم يعملون بمقتضى هذه الرؤية سواء رأوه أو لم يروه. جيد. They understand Dr. Maputu. Shaykh Uthaymeen even gives a nice benefit in this regard. He said this. So what about us in these lands of the non-Muslims? In this regard, what do we do in regards to the sighting? He said, if it's not, he said, فَإِنَّ هَؤُلَاءِ يُمْكِنُهُمْ يُثْبِتُوا الْهِلَالِ. He said, for verily, he said they can establish the sighting by a legislative or in a legislated way. Whereas the people, of course, investigate the sighting, if they're able to do that. And if they're not able to do that, for verily, he said, we say by the first statement in regards to this matter, he says, when the sighting of the moon has been established in another Muslim country, for verily, then they can work in accordance to that sighting. Doesn't matter whether they've seen it or not. Is it clear? Because every year we go through this. As soon as the 28th night, then especially now social media adds more fitna onto it. So you clearly heard what we just mentioned. Right, everyone? It's not a major affair. It's also the great Imam, Sheikh Salih Fawzan. You know what else he said? He said it's very strange that the people rambling back and forth about let's unite the sighting. He said what's more important than that is that we unite in our aqidah. He said, why isn't there anybody rambling and raving like, let's unite in our belief? But you want to worry about the sighting of the moon. What's going to cure the ills of the Muslims and remove their sicknesses and the diversity and all the weaknesses and the disgrace that has came from Allah as a result of this affair, which is being diverse in the affairs of whatever, of Aqidah. That's what caused the disgrace to fall upon the Muslims in the first place. And then as a result of that, that's what the Muslims need to be focusing on. So if anything you want to talk about on social media, if anything you want to rant and rave about and make a big hoopla about and a riff-raff and all this he say, she say, talk about let's unite in Aqidah. Talk about that before worrying about the what? The sighting. So he said a very profound statement. You see the hikmah of the great Imam, Sheikh Salih Fawzan, like, Hafidhullah. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So that's in regards to what we mentioned about pertaining to the sighting. We gave the details of it. So it's no problem, inshallah, if one hears that they say Saudi Arabia announced it, due to the fact that we're in a non-Muslim country and we do not be, as they say, 52nd Street Bubba going to the bridge on Grace Ferry. They cited the moment and telling us to now fast tomorrow. Okay? This is from the most hilarious of affairs that we in which we do not need to waste our time with. So let's move on, everyone. So the great Imam, he goes on to say, Bab Tabyit al-Niyya wa Hukm al-Fawat Lighurra aw udhr. So the great Imam, he goes on to say, the next lines of poetry, how in regards to now it's incumbent upon one to establish his or her intention. So now the affair revolves around what everyone? وباب تبييت النية وحكم الفوات لغرة أو عذر. For those who missed it off as far as in their fast, what is the affair pertaining to the intention, or what is supposed to be done? So notice the great Imam Al Hafiz Al Hakamee goes on to say, وواجب تبييته بالليل نية صوم الفرض دون النفل ودون النفل وحيث بان الصوم بعد أن مضى بعد النهار صامه ثم قضى ومن يكن شرط قبول فقدا أو صحة ثم به قد وجدا ككافر أثناءه قد أسلم ومثله الصغير حيث احتلم كذاك ذو الإغماء قل إن يفقي أوجب عليهم صيام ما بقي. He said in the poetry. So now he's talking about the affairs revolving the intention. And that has a little details in it. But we'll take inshallah all these lines quickly. He says what is obligatory is that one, that they now, at the night of Ramadan, in regards to the obligatory fast. Obligatory fast, which breaks down into 3 categories. People think it's one. No, it isn't. 3 categories. You have what is obligatory, which is siyam al-nadhr, the fasting of a vow, and one takes a vow, or takes an oath. That's obligatory. You'll find that Ahl-Ilm describe this type of fast as a siyam or siyamun wajib bisabab. It's an obligatory fast due to a reason that you did to make it obligatory upon yourself. Where you did not have to do that, but you made it binding upon yourself after you took that vow to do it. So that's an obligation that made binding by a reason, meaning you made it obligatory upon yourself. Is it clear? Then you have the second type of obligatory fast, is what they call the second type, which is the siyam al-kaffara, the fasting of an expiation, or to expiate a particular affair. The fasting of expiation. And that is for one, of course, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, and I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's in Surah Al-Ma'idah. And now, I think it is in Surah Al-Ma'idah, وَصَوِّبْنِي إِن كُنْتُ مُخْطِئ وَإِن كُنْتُ مُتَوَهِّمٍ. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, فَكَفَّارَتُهُ إِطْعَامُ عَشْرَةِ مَسَاكِينَ مِنْ أَوْسَطِ مَا تُطْعِمُونَ أَهْلِيكُمْ أَوْ كِسْوَتُهُمْ أَوْ تَحْرِيرُ رَقَبَةٍ فَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ فَصِيَامُ 3 أيام ذَلِكَ كَفَّارَةُ أَيْمَانِكُمْ إِذَا حَلَفْتُمْ وَاحْفَظُوا أَيْمَانَكُمْ. Surah Al-Ma'idah. Surah Al-Ma'idah. I was right?
No.
Alhamdulillah. طيب, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anyway, leave that to the side. That's not the point. The point is, get sidetracked. The point is, the obligatory fast, the second type, is the second of what is in what? Expiation. Expiation. That's also bisabab. That's also due to a reason. Meaning a specific sin or a specific affair that you fell into, and then you had to what? Follow it up with that expiation. That type of fast is what? Obligatory. That's the second type. Right, everyone? That type of fast is what? Obligatory. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, فَكَفَّارَتُهُ إِطْعَامُ 10 مساكين من أوسط ما تطعمون أهليكم أو كسوتهم أو تحرير رقبة. To the end of the ayah. We'll talk about that later. It's not the time. ليس هذا محل النص. Anyway, that's the second. The third type of fast is obligatory, which is not due to a reason. Rather, it's obligatory bi asl al-shar'. However, it's obligatory due to the origin of the religion, which is the fast of what? Ramadan. And that type of fast, the obligatory fast, breaks down to two types: ada' wa qada'. Ada' meaning it's done at the time it's supposed to be done, and the qada', which is what? Making it up. Oh. Is it clear, everyone? All those fasts are what? If you want to say, just to summarize it, all of them are what? All of them are obligatory. Whether it be due to a reason or not. Whether it be sabab or بغير sabab. يعني بأصل الشرع. Whether it be from the reason for it being, that you made it binding upon yourself, or not. Due to the fact that it's established from the origin of religion. Such as the fast of Ramadan. Doesn't matter. All those fasts are what? Just to make it clear and keep it easy, concise. All of those fasts we just mentioned are all what? All of them obligatory. Where am I going with all this? It's obligatory that you have to have a niyyah for all those fasts before you go to sleep the previous night. Just to sum it up. Before you go to sleep at night, have a niyyah for all those fasts. It's not just for Ramadan, all of the obligatory fasts. If one goes to sleep at night, that they have to what? As they say, you bayit niyyah. That one has to have the intention. Is it clear, everyone? That they have to have the intention. Right. That's for the obligatory fast, right? What about the voluntary fast? Those the voluntary fast is a little more lenient, slightly. Then you have siyam al-nafal or siyam tatawwu'. Then you have the voluntary fast. The voluntary fast break down to two types. You have that has been stipulated of what was mentioned in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, such as fasting on Yom al-Ithnain on Monday and what Thursday, for example. Does one need to have a start day fast or make the intention before the previous night, meaning before Fajr? Do they or what do they not? They don't? So you can start a fast for Monday and Thursday in the middle of the day or after Fajr? Is that sahih? Is that correct? But in this regard, I used to say that myself. I thought it was for mutlaq, for all fasts, all voluntary fasts. That you didn't have to have the niyyah before the previous night. However, in regards to the fast that has been highly recommended, not the obligatory, talk about the highly recommended voluntary fast. That what the Messenger of Allah mentioned on certain days, such as Monday and Thursday, or Ayyam al-Bid. Or Ayyam al-Bid. Ayyam al-Bid, which is what? The 13th, 14th, 15th for the Hijri calendar. Those are Ayyam al-Bid, right, everyone? 13, 14, 15, right? Those are called Ayyam al-Bid. I think they call them the white nights or the white days or something to that effect. How do you translate it? The white nights. Ayyam al-Bid. Ayyam al-Bid on the Hijri calendar is 13, 14, 15. Then you have those recommended days, which is what? Monday and what? Thursday. Shaykh Uthaymeen gives a little bit more diqqa in this regard. He said, for those type of legislated, highly recommended fast, the Messenger of Allah prescribed, one should start his fasting from the beginning of Fajr. So the actual name of Yom al-Khamis can be completed. So you can say you fasted the day of Khamis. So those need a niyyah. in regards to just an abrupt fast that you might want, where it's not prescribed from the sunnah, but something generally you want to do, then that second type, which is what they call siyam mutlaq, we're talking about voluntary now, not we're talking about obligatory, voluntary. Then you have an abrupt fast that you just want to do abruptly, out of nowhere. That abrupt fast that you want to do after the sun came up, and you did not eat any of the affairs that will break your fast, such as eating and drinking or being intimate or whatever. The sun is already up, and even some of the day is already passed. For that abrupt fast that you want to do, you don't have to have the intention. You do not have to have the intention before Fajr. Rather, the sun comes up, even some of the day is started or some of the day is passed. You do not need the intention for that general abrupt fast, not to the highly recommended prescribed fast that the Messenger of Allah is prescribed for example, Monday, Thursday, or the white nights, or what have you. That's why he gives a little distinction. He said, but if it's an abrupt fast, like for just say, for example, Friday, well, of course we know that that's prohibited alone. And for the Eid prayer, for the Eid, that's also prohibited. One should not fast those days. Friday should not fast, voluntary fast for Friday alone, unless it's the day after the day before, as we know. We'll talk about that later. But I'm talking about an abrupt fast, like for example, Sunday. You wake up in the morning, your intention initially was not to fast at all. You didn't eat or drink anything. You wasn't intimate with your spouse to that end of it. The sun is up, nobody brought you food, okay, I feel like fasting. Does one have to continue it all the way to the nightfall? Preferably yes, but one does not have to. Does he have to make it up? No, he does not have to make it up. Is it clear, everyone? Even for the sunnah that how to prescribe fast. Preferably you should, but do you have to? No. If you break it, then you do not have to make it up. No, you don't.
Is there any portion of the reward for that?
Of course, no doubt. You still get the reward. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Because back in the time, I thought that was mutlaq. I thought that was absolute for every voluntary fast that you do not have to have the niyyah, and you could do it in the morning time, what have you. But however, like we said in this regard, those abrupt fasts that you want to do during the day, like for example, another recommended days. After one completes the month of Ramadan, there wants to do what? 6 days of Shawwal. Those 6 days of Shawwal, you wake up in the morning, you did not have intention to fast, and then you changed it. Can we say now that you fast the day 6 days of Shawwal? You understand? You understand where I'm coming from? Right now, 6 days of Shawwal, everyone completed Ramadan. It's like, alhamdulillah, you finished Ramadan by the fadl of Allah. 6 days of Shawwal, and then you have the fasting of the whole year. Is the reward, right? Like 6 days of Shawwal, I wake up, my intention was not made before Fajr. Like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, now I didn't eat, I didn't drink, I didn't do anything. Now let me start my fast. 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, or 12 o'clock in the morning. I didn't make my intention prior. Can you say you fasted the day of Shawwal now? So it can be included with the reward of fasting now. 6 days. Except that you had to have the intention for what? You had to have the intention before Fajr. You had to have the intention before Fajr for those 6 days of Shawwal. And it's not what? Befitting. That you now make your niyyah after the sun is what? Has risen. For those 6 days of Shawwal. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So those affairs that one has to be very what? Careful. Because I used to think the same thing you were thinking. They're all voluntary fast. You do not have to have the intention until the what? Sun came up. Preferably you don't have to have it before Fajr. It could be after the sun rises. During any time you feel like it, with the condition that you did not eat anything that what? Breaks your fast. That's what I thought. Until you start to research a little bit more. To remove yourself from khilaf, for those prescribed voluntary fasts, such as the white nights, Monday and Thursday, 6 days of Shawwal, and the likes of that. Yawm Ashura, because one can use that for Ashura. They say, I have to have the niyyah for Muharram.
The first 10 days of
the first 10 days of the Hijjah. I don't have to have a niyyah before the Fajr. Khalas, I'll wake up and I'll just start it. Or, for example, Muharram, Yawm Ashura. Yawm Ashura, I have to have a niyyah before I can start my family maybe 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Those prescribed, highly recommended. One should make his niyyah before what? Before Fajr. Remove himself from khilaf. For the abrupt fast, we're talking about, just abruptly. You want to do a little fast. Sun came up. Just say on Sunday. Let's just say on Monday. All right, I did decide to do the prescribed fast of Monday, but I want to do a little abrupt, slight fast from 9 o'clock to what? When the sun goes down, what have you. I didn't eat anything yet, so let me just fast. That abrupt fast. Here, that type of abrupt voluntary fast, one does not need his intention after the sun is what? Risen. He doesn't need it. If the sun is risen and he didn't make his intention, he can make it after the sun is risen. Or after the sun rises, excuse me. Is it clear, everyone? Is it clear or not? You sure? I explained this about 20 times. And Allah knows best, we're going to get a question about this again. Even though I explained it. It always happens to me. Fine. Is it clear, everyone? Fine. But the mawdu' of the topic revolves around the obligatory fast. That's what we're speaking about. Those obligatory fasts all needs what? An intention before Fajr. Right? Fine. Listen what the Haafiz Al Hakamee goes on to say. وحيث بان الصوم بعد أن مضى بعد النهار صامه ثم قضى. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. He says, after fast has become clear that one has to fast, even though some of the day passes, for certain individuals, they still have to fast the rest of the day, and they have to make it up. What are we speaking about here? Speaking about a couple of people. For example, those who are non-Muslim. During the month of Ramadan, do they have to now fast during the day after they become Muslim? Meaning one day during the month of Ramadan, some individual comes in, let's just say for Dhuhr, I want to become Muslim. Like, does he have to fast the rest of that day or not? Does he have to fast the rest of that day or not? Ahl al-Ilm do say, and this is what leans towards what the strongest opinion is, we'll talk about this in detail a little bit later, that he does have to abstain from it the rest of the day. And he still has to make it up later. Just to be careful. Right? Why? Because they say he became from Ahl al-Wujub. He came from those who were what? Not from those who was obliged to do it, and he became from those who now have to what? Do it. Another example. Person did not know Ramadan started. Just reached him during the middle of the day. Ramadan started. Does he have to fast the rest of that day? Or not? Didn't know. Muslim. Didn't reach him yet. You need to reach him the news that Ramadan started. News finally reached him. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, Ramadan started. What does he have to do? Does he have to fast the rest of that day or not? Does he? We say yes. We say yes. Because he became from the people who was, for now it's an obligation, because the now it's going to reach him, but once it's reached him, he's now been binding upon him to do it. Another question. What about a person who's sick? Or a person that was traveling, he came back to the city during the day of Ramadan, after he started the day not fasting, because he was traveling. The answer is no. He doesn't have to finish what? He does not have to what? He does not have to complete the rest of his day where he has to fast or abstain from food and drink or whatever. Due to the fact of two distinctions, and I want everyone to be attentive to this. It's a difference between a person being from the people who's obligatory and there's a mani'. And there's a particular barrier that allows one to what? That allows one to not fast that particular day, and it carries on even though at a particular time it stops. But due to the fact that the rukhsah or the permit they were given allows them to continue it throughout the day. Such as the one who travels. The traveler started his day under the rukhsah, under the permit. That he was what? He doesn't have to fast. Soon as he now comes back to his city, do I now have to fast the rest of the day? No, you do not. Same thing in regards to the woman. The mani' has now been removed. Woman comes, let's just say after Asr. She was on her mens. Mens, she now becomes purified. She found she purified, what? Does she have to now fast the rest of the day? No. Due to the fact that she was from those who was not supposed to fast. Had a rukhsah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed it, she does not have to what? Fast the rest of her day. For those people who was allowed the rukhsah, and which has started, can carry on for the rest of the day till the sun goes down. Even though, from the abab or the aspect of mannerism, they should just eat and drink away from the people in order for not to what? In order to not be able to show that they're negligent or they don't have any type of consideration for the others who are fasting. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So those affairs are the difference between the one who became Muslim during the day and the one who started the day from a permit that Allah gave them and allowed them, and then carries on even though the actual reason of why they take the permit stops due to the fact that they either cut their travel, or they're not sick anymore, or the woman became purified from a mens, and the likes of that. Is it clear? Is it clear or is it not clear? Jiggy. So that's what he says in this regard. He said, for those who now this is what Haafiz Al Hakamee, this is what he said. He said, وَحَيْثُ بَانَ الصَّوْمُ بَعْدَ أَنْ مَضَى بَعْضُ النَّهَارِ صَامَهُ ثُمَّ قَضَى. He's talking about the people who are not from Ahl Wujub. From the people who was from the state of what they were not, it was not obligatory. So he's saying in this regard, for verily the one who was ignorant at the time, or the one who became Muslim during the day, he says, تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ أَثْنَاءَ النَّهَارِ. We're talking about the people who, for example, did not know it was the day of Ramadan started, the month of Ramadan started. He said, أَنَّ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ مِنْ رَمَضَانِ. He said, مَنْ تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ أَثْنَاءَ النَّهَارِ. يعني ما أدركه الخبر بأنه الآن دخل شهر رمضان المبارك أن ذلك اليوم من رمضان وجب عليه صيام الباقي من يومه، ووجب عليه كذلك القضاء بدليل ما جاء في البخاري ومسلم والنسائي عن سلمة ابن الأكوع أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أمر رجلا من أسلم أن أذن في الناس إذ فرض يوم عاشوراء ألا من أكل فليمسك ومن لم يأكل فليصم. He said, in regards to the person now that it became clear it's the day of Ramadan and part of the day had already passed, he said that person should what? Fast the rest of the day or the remainder of the day. And incumbent upon that, to remove themselves from khilaf, that they should make that day up. Due to the evidence which comes in Bukhari, Muslim, and Nasa'i, when the authority of Salama ibn al-Akwa', that the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, he commanded a man who became Muslim that he should announce amongst the people, hence the day of Yawm Ashura was obligatory in that particular day. He says, for the one who ate, let him fast the rest of his day. And whoever did not eat yet, let them fast, meaning let them complete the day was remaining. وَكَانَ ذَلِكَ فِي النَّهَارِ. The Messenger of Allah announced that during the day. So that's in regards to those who what? Did not reach them of the news. And you can apply that to say the one who became Muslim. Take in consideration, of course, the masalih and the mafasid. Take in consideration those affairs also. Is it clear, everyone? But in regards to now, like we said, the person who's sick, the person who's traveling, the woman who became purified, or what have you, they started that day upon the rukhsah, it is not binding upon them that they what? Have to finish the day where they have to fast. Last benefit, and I'm going to close it out. Those who broke their fast from other than a permit in which Allah gave for them to leave off fasting that day, which is, for example, they're not sick, they're perfectly fine, there's nothing wrong with them, they have no ailments, no sicknesses. I just want to break my fast because I don't feel like fasting anymore. Or what have you. Those people, if they do that, or break their fast, due to anything that breaks it, then as a punishment or disciplinary action for them, they still have to what? They still have to remain or refrain from food and drink for the rest of that day. Because they broke their fast from something that Allah did not give them as an allowance for them to what? Break their fast. Like I said, it's a little khilaf between Ahl al-Ilm. You'll find that a lot of them that they mention that due to the fact that they say أَخَلُّ بِحُرْمَةِ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ, that they now had infringed upon the sacredness of that particular day. Because we know breaking the fast in the month of Ramadan is from the major sins, if it's not due to a legislated excuse from the Kitab and Sunnah. If they don't do it or break it from a legislated excuse from the Kitab and Sunnah, or an allowance which Allah gave for one to excuse themselves from fasting that day, then it is considered from the what? Major sins. Is it clear, everyone? And then a person infringes upon the sacredness of that particular day is considered from the kaba'ir, from the major sins. Due to that reason, you'll find that that they mention and say that person has to remain or refrain from food and drink for the rest of the day if they fall into something that breaks their fast, which is not considered and legislated acceptable excuse from the Kitab and Sunnah. Is it clear? But if it's not the case, from traveling, sick, what have you, then they can continue to eat and drink for the rest of the day, even if the mani', that particular barrier or excuse has been removed, they still can what? Enjoy the rest of the day. Take in consideration, like we said, of those around you. Is it clear, everyone? So a woman will say, now I have to fast the rest of the day after she had her mens. We say no. She can eat and drink for the rest of her particular day. Is it clear, everyone? Right, we'll stop here. Any questions about the lesson? Follow.
Some masjids in the city, within the last 5 to 7 years, they come with some type of calculation where they calculate the sighting for the next 50 years. Claim, of course, not, but this is what they say they do.
Al-Hisab al-Falaki is not permissible. They call the sighting calculation or the astronomical or the astronomical calculations that they utilize is not from our religion. Not from our religion at all. Now, if one is to use scopes or what have you to sight the moon, there's nothing wrong with that. They call it al-marasid al-falakiyya al-muqarrib al-mukabbir al-muqarrib. They call them like a microscope. There's nothing wrong with that, to try to sight the moon, to utilize those type of methods. The point of the calculations, the astronomical calculations, those are the things that have no place in our religion. Anything else? Tafadhal.
The hadith concerning one person seeing the moon sighting and 2 people seeing it at the end of the month. Is that one specific for Ramadan, or that's just for the rest of the months as well?
From what I know is that's specifically in Allahu A'lam for Ramadan due to the fact of the ibadah for the month. That's what comes to my mind. I'm going to check it just to make sure. Because of the affair of worship that's been established, that's actually connected with the qa'idah fiqhiyya that I wanted to mention. About once an affair of worship has been established, it's not removed except that there's a little bit more hadar in regards to when it's now concluded. So that's why they say 2 witnesses should be established in regards to the conclusion of the month. So, but all those affairs revolve around the fact that it's the month of Ramadan when people are fasting.
Just not, sorry for the tangent, but can you give another example of what you just said? I know.
Not right now. It's 9:18 and we still got a break. For anything else? For
I was going to ask a brief description on the 2 uprightness. Like what do you mean by upright?
Two upright Muslim, practicing Muslims. Not just a Muslim that came, I'm a Muslim. And it's clear that they're not practicing Muslims. Just Muslim by just by name. That's why we put the detail on it. Upright meaning 5-day praying, upright, praying in congregation Muslim. So that's when we say adl. The adl doesn't mean just. Here it means upright. It means upright. It means a 5-day praying, as much as he's able in congregation praying upright Muslim. That's not just Muslim by name. Or as we say in the city, a kayfa Muslim. He only comes to the masjid 3 times a year. Or maybe every now and then. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not talking about that person. Person who's known in the community, trustworthy, reliable. It's known about his piety. It's known about his uprightness. It's known about his qualifications of his vision, strong in his vision of knowing what has to be cited, of all the descriptions of the citing to the end of it. That's why I said upright Muslim, practicing Muslim individual, because you got to put all the stipulations in there. And even for marriage, the same thing. It's not just a kayfa halak Muslim. No, 5-day praying Muslim has to be a witness. It has to be a 5-day praying Muslim. That has to be a witness for your marriage. Not just a Muslim by name. You haven't seen him ever in your life. Don't know if he's praying or not. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? All those affairs. So that's why I say Shad Musliman Adlan. So adl here means uprightness. As Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah said about the word adl, he said, Al-ghalib ala halihi al-istiqama lillahi ta'ala. Al-ghalib ala halihi. The meaning of the word adl is that what takes precedence in most cases in regards to him specifically is that it's known of his uprightness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the meaning of adl. Is it clear? Just the meaning of adl. Any other question? طيب stop here. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.